Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Real Heroes Show. You got Corey and Nick with you here in this video, and it is spooky season officially. Netflix came out with Mike Flanagan's newest horror series, Midnight Mass, over the weekend. We very much binged through all 7 episodes before the weekend was over. Yes. Spoiler alert, there's going to be lots of spoilers in this. It's one of those shows that you just can't put down once you start it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's probably a good idea to do that and let your body decompress. Nick, how are you today, sir?
Doing well, kicking off the week here. It was strong with the fine Monday after a weekend of lots of binging and show watching.
Yeah, it kind of felt nice to sit down at work and not have to watch 10 episodes of television.
Very much so.
In a day, so. Which is fantastic. So speaking of Monday, we did drop a Ted Lasso video as per usual on Mondays, covering the 10th episode of season 2. So make sure to check that out. Also, go ahead and like this video if you can. Click that subscribe button. Really helps support the channel before we get started here. Again, this video will feature spoilers for the entirety of Midnight Mass. So there is some really cool stuff that happens in this show that I would not want anyone to have spoiled for them. So if you have not watched the show yet, please press pause on this video, go check it out on Netflix, come back and see us. We're going to talk about the story, performances from the actors, and then some miscellaneous things before we wrap this one up. So Nick, what were your thoughts overall on the story and the themes of this show?
Yeah, I was really intrigued by it because, wasn't quite sure what to expect other than a lot of, suspenseful, points or, moments, which we did get, of course. And I like the fact that, Flanagan didn't try to overcompensate for the jumpiness in those moments where they are suspenseful. And, I think the usage of music or the effects from the stringed instruments was well done, well placed. That's one of the things that I really enjoyed about this series. Also, just the amount of episodes. I think 7 was a really good number.
I'm doing the prayer hands for Midnight Mass for that one.
Yeah,
yes, so good.
So I mean, I think if they would have dragged it out a little bit more, it might have taken away from the effect. And same thing, I don't know if they could have taken away an episode or points just to make it 6. So I think, lucky number 7 was a good number. But the acting was very well done from all accounts, the kids, the adults, and just some of the effects that were in this. And again, I liked a lot of the different cinematic shots, the usage of overheads, or just
that's becoming the new horror trend is overhead cinematography.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the usage of this. I think it was very well done. Same thing where a lot of widescreen shots, especially in the rec center too. Yeah. Which obviously had some really great moments, but I mean, thematically there's a bunch of stuff, from forgiveness to hatred, love, addiction,
afterlife.
The afterlife. I mean, there's so much, and obviously, it's right in front of you, but religion, and it, creatures of the night maybe, but it's again one of those things where there's so much to take away from this, but it's not there's a lot that's also kind of crammed into a show or down our throats. And yeah, we were briefly saying off screen where this kind of reminded me a little bit like True Blood, not in a campy sense, of course, but just the origins of what this angel really was. But there's again not to really get into so much of I'm obviously not going to go in and dissect and start kind of going into the scriptures or whatnot, but there's a lot obviously that's in there which you can tell, and then I would suggest it's just kind of doing some searching on your own if you're interested in that. But I feel like one of the big takeaways from what I believe Flanagan was trying to do again was to just um, get people to think about free will as it's also discussed and like your choices. And I loved that conversation between Riley Flynn and Aaron Green when they're sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
The whole what happens after you die, but then that scene gets added onto at the very end of the series as Aaron is on the ground before she gets evaporated by the sun, turned to dust. And it was great. It was so well done. And again, some of those effects with what we see from just the gruesome murders that happen, the killing,
some killing.
Yeah, just the entire island burning. I mean, it was crazy. Like I know you and I were texting like at the end of the last few episodes. We're like, holy shit, this ending! Holy shit, this ending! Holy shit, this ending! And it was just it was crazy. So
yeah,
it was a lot to decompress.
I don't know if you and I have ever even had this conversation, but do you have like a religious upbringing? Like when you were a kid, did you like go to church and shit or?
Oh yeah. I mean, I would say like I'm full on Christian for the most part. Like I brought up in church. I think even though I was just cursing, of course. I mean,
do that a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's kind of just again kind of goes into the aspect of I'm far from being perfect, and I think in those cases, if that's my vice, if that's the thing that I personally deal with, and that's what I personally deal with. I mean, I'd rather much have the sin of cursing than killing, murdering, adultery. Sure. Like there are far worse things to be guilty about, and like everyone has their things that they're flawed about. And that was sort of the other thing where it mentions it's not so much that God uses people that are perfect, but the people that are broken. And and that's very much apparent in my experiences on this earth as well. And I understand where people come from when they go through these tragedies, and they, it's like the whole scene between Lisa and Joe, the town drunk. Man, dude, where
what a killer scene.
I mean, absolutely incredible. Yeah. And I mean, but that right there is like the epitome of what it means to be like a Christian, where it's not about forgetting what happened. Like you will always remember that, but it's about understanding that as tragic as this was, I forgive you. And I have conversations with like friends and family about this, where it's hard to kind of deal with some of the things that, you've like people deal with and be okay with it. Like, I mean, I'll be the first person to admit that even in my beliefs, my religion aspects, I've cursed at God. I've had like like these moments where I've been enraged and not understanding, and and not to get too biblical here, but and take away from this review, but this film, this series, I could understand a lot of what the characters were saying, but from like Riley's experience. Like obviously I haven't been in Riley's situation before, but with some of the things that he was talking about, I think one of the interesting talking points is the afterlife itself, and I think a lot of people will have their answers, and sort of, again, one of those moments where it's like, what do we live for? If nothing else, to just, well,
for someone like him, what is his purpose in life at this point?
Right? And I mean, shit, I'll be straight up. Like, I mean, it was even earlier this year where I questioned like what my purpose is at this point in my life. And
YouTube videos, that's the answer.
Yeah. And that's it's like, I mean, it's here bringing this information. Like, I mean, I think what we do here is in trying to create thought-provoking moments is far more than what other YouTube channels do.
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know. If you're listening, you watch
leave us a comment.
channels. Leave us a comment. Do you agree with what we just said,
or are we a bunch of babbling fucking idiots,
or I don't know what the hell I'm talking about? But no, like it's I could feel them on that level, and it's again, I mean, hardships that we've had to deal with, people that we know that have obviously been lost, or being in bad accidents, or getting fired even, and just not understanding what it was. And I think, again, one of the moments that you kind of see, and I'll maybe preface in the show, is and something that I've maybe learned, and again, it's not easy, but I think the other maybe earthly connection would be something that even like, Steve Jobs had said, where you can't connect the dots moving forward, only backwards. And that's very true, because, you look at where you come from, and not anything to do with like bad points, but for Riley as an example, he comes from this island. He's a smart guy, as we find out.
Yep.
He leaves, has this startup company, probably made a bunch of money, and because I think he drove a pretty nice car, if I remember correctly. Wasn't it Audi? I don't remember what it was, but
I don't know. It had a Jesus fish on it. I know that.
Yeah. So I mean, and he was praying with the paramedic or whatever on the side, and which
then the paramedic says, "Why is it that the drunk fucks never have a scratch on them, and the kids are always the ones that get killed by your stupid mistakes?" So, it very fascinating.
Oh, absolutely.
The way that Flanagan has structured this is meant to slightly mirror his own life experience. So he was raised Catholic and then left that, and I don't know if he's down to just being like a Christian, or if he's a full-blown atheist, or whatever at this point. But the show is kind of him, I think, exercising a lot of his personal, not necessarily demons, but just like a lot of stuff that's kind of just up in the air in his head. The show does a lot of examining why is faith important? Is faith actually important? What's the difference between faith and science? There's the one breakthrough moment that the priest has all the way at the end, where Bev, who is the asshole of all assholes, decides that only certain people are going to be led into the rec center, and then everybody else is just going to burn when the sun rises. And he just like loses his shit, slams open the doors to the church, and he's like, you know what? If it's really God's house, everyone is welcome. Nobody's going to get turned away. And that is something that, for me, I don't really, I don't practice any religion. I don't know what the right term is. I've never really done the research on it, but I don't go to church. I don't pray. I don't believe in any of that shit or whatever, which is fine. Some people do. And if that's their thing, that's great. However, it appears that for a lot of sects of religion, whether it's Protestant or Baptist or Episcopalian or whatever, it seems like the Catholicism is the one that gets kind of shit on by a lot of people, because like the entry point is not necessarily what they want it to be. Not everybody's welcome. You can't have sex out of wedlock. You can't get divorced. Like all of those things are like unforgivable sins that you're going to hell for if you're part of that area. And it seems like the pastor, priest, or whatever he is, has like a come to Jesus moment at the end of the series. And he realizes that everything they're doing is wrong. And he even says that. And all that stuff is just, it's almost like Flanagan himself telling the story of when he had that moment in his head where he said, wait a minute, what's going on? Why are we doing this? And that's when he made decisions in his own personal life. It's so tough to go through because it's such a talky show and there's so much going on. But like, at the end, all of these people that have literally been essentially sentenced to death by the church they go to, they all start fucking singing a hymn as the sun is rising. And it's like, it brings up the question of, are they just that strong in their faith and faith is that important, or have they just been completely brainwashed at that point, or is the answer somewhere in between? It's a really fascinating study and an exercise in all forms of religion, because you've even got like the Muslim side of it with Rahul Kohli's character, who's the sheriff in the town, where he's one of the genuine good guys on the show, and he's ostracized just because he's a Muslim. They don't want to, they want to have the Bible in the classroom, but when he brings up the idea of the Quran being there, they immediately are all like, no, we can't do that. And
especially Bev.
Yeah, especially Bev. And then
Yeah.
when he shows up to the rec center all the way at the end and gets shot and he's bleeding and he's like, oh, are you hungry? And she's like, no, dirty blood. And it's like, that's like some real fucked up shit, man.
Well, she also calls him a terrorist too.
Right.
And we get that.
He's a police officer.
Yeah. And the one thing, if there's anything that was a little, I mean, I know why she said it, because he tells the story about
9/11
about 9/11. Yeah. And, you know, so, but it's like, okay, cool, Bev, we know you're racist. You know, and it's like, as a, you know, as, I mean, listen, like there's a lot, I mean, that I think, I learned from just, and again, obviously this can just come from being a good person and having common sense, but you know, I learned to, it's like, you know, obviously racism is bad, you know, and it's not rocket science, and it's to literally, like, it's the whole thing with what Jesus taught about, it was just love one another. It's that simple, you know, and it's not rocket science. And that's sort of the thing that I feel like, you know, again, the Monsignor Pruitt he definitely has a sort of come to Jesus moment at the end where he literally says, like, you know, if these are God's, you know, doors, then they should be open. And that's sort of like the non-denominational way. Like, I mean, the last church that I was going to before the pandemic was, you know, non-denominational. They don't care, you know, it's like, you know, even if you were, you know, obviously, like, it just didn't matter, right? Like, it, you know, like if you practiced another religion but just wanted to go, like, I mean, maybe that's not like the right, you know, place, but even then, like, who cares if you have tattoos, what you wear?
That's another thing,
you know,
depending
and
on
like
the religion, you can't get buried in a cemetery if you have tattoos,
which is, I mean, I you know, listen, I think one of the interesting parts that, you know, is it's quoted often, but I think Flanagan did a pretty good job about the usage of scripture in this show, which I respected. But also, it's like, I mean, the big thing about tattoos, I mean, I've got hours and hours worth of tattoos on my back and my legs, and I mean, my old pastor had a sleeve. You know, a lot of pastors nowadays are tatted up, and I mean, people are like, oh, it's Leviticus, da 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 da. I'm like,
times change.
Here's the thing.
People need to change with them.
You know what? People, the biggest part that gets taken out of context is, they don't read the rest of the chapter, and the rest of the chapter actually says, if you have a beard, you shouldn't cut your beard. If you like, you know, there's certain things about clothes. So it's sort of like, hey, we're changing fashion like every decade at that point. Right. Like, you know, at what point are you saying, oh, well, we misspoke? I mean, you know, and again, like, times have changed, but even then, like, it's just like the normal, the easy principles that get overlooked. And I feel like with this show, especially with, I know it's his wife, Erin Green, right? Is Mike Flanagan's married to Erin Green, I think, right?
In real life, yeah.
In real life, yeah. Kate
Siegel.
Kate Siegel, yeah. And I think a lot of what her dialogue consisted of was written in that faithful manner, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of like what you're saying just a second ago with the people at the end. I think I can't think of the Sturge, I think his name was.
Yeah,
the big beard. Yeah. He's talking to one of the kids, who's like one of the altar boys. Not the Flynn kid.
Yeah, it's his friend.
His friend.
Yeah.
You know, then they have like this like conscious like awareness moment of, mm-hmm. I did some bad stuff just now. Like, yeah, like I should have done this, you know. And again, it's it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know, like it's hard to, it's just so much to the show. Like I feel like we could spend an hour dissecting the entire thing. And I really, we talked about this before. I almost wish the show was released one episode at a time.
Absolutely. 100%. Netflix needs to go straight to jail for releasing this shit all in one weekend.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't like it.
For a show that's as good as this, it's a disservice to the writing. It really is. And it bugs me because like you can't just, and I feel like a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, yeah, there were religious overtones of faith and this and that and this.
Right.
And that's that. Scripture, Proverbs. And it's like, dude, like, no, like these are worth diving into because it's good conversation, it's good talking points, it's great writing, it's good character development. Like,
yeah, you can tell that it's written by somebody who actually understands all of this stuff,
and that's big.
Like he knew that he didn't understand like the Muslim aspect to it, so they brought on 2 Muslim advisors for the dialogue and the religion side of it, and also like the motions when they're doing all of the different types of prayer. Rahul Kohli is not a practicing Muslim. He said on Twitter the other night that he's an atheist. So they had to teach him how to do that. And in order to do so, they brought in the right people. So it's like, while the show is a little bit, it can be a little bit scathing towards different brands of religion, but it does it in an extremely respectful manner. And it understands the backgrounds and the way people are. And like, I had never seen a television show before that understood and explained to the audience how, because it's such a trope to be like, oh, Muslim, bad, terrorist, right? He went in here and he was like, no, I'd be thrilled if my son wanted to learn about God. I would absolutely let him go to church and learn, because we seek knowledge. That's part of our faith and our religion. All of that stuff, it was so well written. It was so well performed. It felt genuine and not just like a lot of religious stuff on TV is very hokey, and
it is
almost borders the line of, you know, getting into racism and stuff, which this did not do, except for Bev because she was awful. But it's great.
Yeah, I think the one thing about pulling religion into a show or you know, a movie where there's always one aspect that gets, you know, shat on and looks bad, right? And when I'm watching this, I'm like, so this kind of seems a little bit more like Catholicism, which I'm not familiar with, you know, and I, as someone who believes in Jesus Christ and you know, who died and was resurrected, I would never be a Catholic, never. and that's sort of, and I look, say what you want about that, and I'm not bashing on anyone who is Catholic. It's like, again, I respect your decision.
Sure.
And I love talking about this. It's like one of those moments where you like having an open mind about it is one of the things. And I felt that's the characterization was done in a lot of these big characters, whether it be Sarah Gunning's mother, you know, obviously Monsignor Pruitt, Aaron, Annie Flynn, you know, the mother, Lisa, you know, who was big. And I think for like, I don't know who the actor was, I can't think of her name, but she did a hell of a damn job.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
You know, I mean, especially in that church scene where they're just like, it reminded me of Kingsman, when he's just murdering everyone in the church and Freebird's playing. Yeah, like I'm like, are we about to see a Freebird Kingsman moment? Because it sounds like that. And you know, I mean, dude, Aaron, or no, it was her mother, right? That shoots Monsignor Pruitt right in the head.
Monsignor Pruitt does get shot right in the head.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, of course he doesn't die, but
oh yeah, because you know, in the new world, death isn't a thing, which is a horrifying fucking concept. But
vampire blood.
So the funny thing to me is that Monsignor Pruitt or Father John or Paul or whatever his name is, which it's all biblical names, ironically enough.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Like, I had always kind of thought that there was something going on between him and Sarah's mom, and in the back of my head, I was like, Sarah and him even have like the same fucking haircut almost. Like I think there might be something. And then in the very end, they reveal it. that he had an affair with her and she's his kid. So like in the Catholic Church, he would be the absolute ultimate sinner, because Catholic priests are not supposed to be with anyone. They're with God. They're God's messengers, right? And here he has an affair with someone who was married.
Shagged a townswoman.
And the daughter that he has doesn't believe in God. And it's hinted at that she's a lesbian at the beginning of the show. And it's just like, there's just so much heavy shit, man. It is so good.
Yeah. And one of the things I thought about just, I mean, after the fact, of like what happened, and why, Monsignor Pruitt, or Paul or John, whatever you want to call him, has that little rant about people who serve in the armed forces.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, at the end, I'm like, her dad served, wasn't there.
That's when he
did the dirty
DMs and
the dirty deed,
did the thing. Yeah.
Come have some communion with me.
Yeah. And it's just really, it's fun because like his daughter ends up being the one who everyone goes to for science-based information. Really good stuff.
I like, even as someone who, for my own beliefs, like I do believe in evolution, and because it's just that's just how I believe things were created. Like things are meant to evolve. Like the universe itself evolves. Like
science is a real thing. It's tangible.
It's ever expanding, right? And I mean, I think it's one of those things where science was created because it's something that needs to exist in order to evolve, right? Like
we can't understand without science. Without science.
Yeah, right. Without science, we obviously would have we'd be in a different place. And I think that's sort of the same thing, like where. Much like technology, as technology evolves, like both things can be used for evil deeds, right? I mean,
like anything.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of like it goes back to the thing where people are just flawed, and I mean it's an interesting point again where Riley has this like mercy moment where I obviously like. The scene was great when he just takes the rowboat, mimicking his dreams or his nightmares, and tells Aaron, "This is why we're here. It's not so I, am, pulling you out into open sea. It's that I'm here so I can't escape." And you kind of just think about what's going to happen, right? And he sees. I texted you at this moment, like he's seeing, his, which I perceived as like. His forgiveness is his merciful moment where his dreams or his nightmares have come to an end, because he sees it's almost like he's become whole again, because every nightmare we've seen in the dark, she's like fragmented pieces of her are missing, where she was damaged,
red and blue lights
are coming through
her.
And this time she's whole. There's the sun like beaming on her,
and she reaches out to him.
Exactly. And so it's like I almost perceived like that as an angelic moment. If there was any angel in the show, that was
an actual
angel.
It's the kid that was taken too soon and all that. Yeah.
And dude, like it was like one of those moments. I'm like, oh man, that is such a sweet moment.
And then
and then she's just screaming.
Another thing that Netflix need to be sent straight to jail for is, as soon as the episode's done, the ticker starts in the bottom. That's like the next episode in 3, 2, 1. But those credits play for 2.5 minutes, and it's Aaron screaming the entire time. Straight to jail, Netflix. I have a lot of problems with you. You charge too much. You release your shit all at once and stuff like that. Like that's clearly, they should have coded it into the Netflix app that episode doesn't just let you skip to the next one in 4 seconds.
That particular one, I stopped it because I was like, how long does this go for? And of course it's like
going.
It's like 1 a.m. or something like that too. I'm like,
pitch black in your room, and all you hear is just the water
screaming.
And the screams. Yeah.
I'm like, this is so daunting and terrifying and just chilling. But, and then, all right, next episode.
one thing you said that I like though is you said that the people are all flawed, and the thing that I think is most fascinating about this show, especially if you follow Flanagan's career and where the progression of what he's done has taken him. The real horror of this show is people. There's like a couple little scary scenes with the angel demon thing swooping in and doing a little jump scare thing or whatever. But like
in the window,
the true horror of this show is people, how manipulative people can be, how submissive people can be, and how dumb they can be. Like that scene in episode 6, they literally are like, okay, we have trays that are full of poison, and you're gonna have to trust me on this. You're gonna drink this poison, and 5 minutes from now, you're gonna come back to life after you die.
Yeah.
At that point, that's where I would be like, yeah, look at that. My mom's calling. I gotta go. Like, but these people, like half of them willingly drink poison because they think that it's God's will. And that's like a whole nother echelon of stupid.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll even talk about too, just briefly, is, I mean, I liked, Omar Sharif's, character quite a bit. And I thought it was very interesting to include, a Muslim character like that on the show. Because, it's someone like Amira is, my girlfriend is Christian, just like myself. Even though her, background is from, Lebanon, where, Muslims and people read the Quran and stuff like that. And she was asleep for most of the show, but she woke up on certain parts and was like, wait,
that's a tough one to walk into.
he's praying and just like, yeah. And obviously would understand. And she was kind of filling me with a little bit of that. But most of what he had, obviously he had said is accurate. So, again, I like the inclusion of that, because at the same time, it's just, again, one of the things to be respectful of is other people's religions. And a lot of people aren't, sure. And it's embodied in this show, and it's like, I appreciate even what the father said, what Omar said to his son. He didn't like beat his kid or scold him for wanting to like go to church or anything like that, or just to kind of seek out knowledge. But I think it's the one thing that's always sort of bugged me is when people force people to convert. Like that's not how you lead people. Like it's one of those things where, listen, my door is always open if you want to talk about it. I'll even as a Christian myself, I'll never force God on anyone. I'm here if you want to talk about it. I think I've had many conversations with friends that we have late at night and have a glass of bourbon and just talk about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sure. It's just, it's a great subject. And cause it's like the conversation they have. What happens after you die? Man, I could talk about that for hours. I really could. And
I can't.
But that's the thing. I feel like you maybe because you just haven't had that conversation.
Oh, I have. I've had hours and hours of people telling me what happens when you die. And then I get to share that I think that when you die, you're dead. You go into the dirt and you're done. And then like, you're soil. But that's the way I feel. And
that's right. Yeah.
If anybody could bring any real tangible proof of an afterlife to the table, then I'd be more than happy to explore the option and discuss it. Do I pine and wish that an afterlife was a real thing? Yes. And that's one of the things that Aaron talks about during that monologue on the couch is like everybody and their mother and their father and their grandfather, regardless of religious status or belief or whatever, would pine and beg and plead to be able to reunite with a loved one that they've lost to death, right? Regardless of whether you're Christian, Muslim, whatever, everybody wants that. And the series did an incredible job in that specific scene, making you all yearn for that. Like, I've lost all my grandparents. They're all gone. I've lost a good deal of my aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to get together with them just one more time, to be able to be like, hey, this is the person that I turned into, and this is where I'm at and what I'm doing, and I'm okay, like,
yeah.
But I don't know if that's ever going to happen. because nobody has any actual evidence of what happens when you die. So it's a super fascinating subject, and
it is. It is.
Faith. The faith thing is interesting because you're talking about like people forcing religion on others. All the people that do that in this show are the ones that are Catholic. Like,
yeah,
Riley comes home and he's like, yeah, I'm not really with God right now, or with faith or whatever. And they're like, the fuck you are, you're going to church, boy. And they drag his ass to church, even though he doesn't want to go.
And yeah, and listen, like people have falling outs like that. That is very much, a thing. Like, I think a really good book, I can't think of the name of what it's called. But the lead singer for August Burns Red, I have his, like, it's not an autobiography. I can't think of the hell what it's called, but yeah, he talks about his personal issues and addictions that he's had, and like, how he stood drunk in the middle of a field cursing at God, like in the middle of the rain or something like that. And,
sure.
And it happens, right? Like, but then it's kind of coming back around to it. I always find it interesting though, with people that, it's like shows like this where we got to talk about demons and hell and Satan and the devil, right, and shit like that. And it's sort of like, okay, but there's an opposite side to that too, right? Like, and that's sort of,
maybe, who knows?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I definitely think it's one of those things where, like, you'll have people, and I've met people that are like, I've seen things, and I've experienced things. And part of me is like, even for what I believe, I'll go, maybe.
Have you really?
But like, and I think it's interesting things like, like the Ouija board as an example, right? Like,
sure.
Every person I've ever met that has actually fucked around with one has said things have gotten bad for them. There was something bad that happened. And I'm like, I'm not going to go and test it out myself, because I'm not a superstitious person. I've been playing sports my entire life too. And I think superstitions is just a fancy way of saying if things go badly, it's just you did something wrong this time, which is implying
something had to happen that led to that event.
Yeah,
it's not because you didn't not wash your underwear for 4 weeks, or because you didn't shave your beard.
The same shirt that I wear every game I win and score a goal, and I didn't
my lucky hat or whatever. Like,
I crossed the line. Yeah, like, I mean, and again, I again, like, it's like, I respect your decision to not choose to do that. Although it's like, the one part of me would wish you would, but I'm not going to pressure you into that, because it's like respecting your boundaries. I'm not going to say, hey, you need to go do steroids if you want to lift heavy weight.
Right.
Even though you would,
yep.
But it's sort of the same thing. Like, you make the decision for yourself. That's I love free will and the decision to make choices on your own. That is just a big moral and ethical value for me, even outside of religion. You make your decisions, you decide what's necessary, and as you feel should be done. And I think the same thing happens in the show that Flanagan depicts, right? Like, he especially with Riley, even though Riley dies, 2 episodes from the end, there's still other things that take place between, Sarah and her mother, the rest of the Flynn family, Lisa, like,
yeah. I mean, even to a degree with Riley, he exercises the idea of free will, because
no, that's what I'm saying.
They do this horrible thing to him, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to become part of your army. I'm just going to let myself burn, and I'm going to go out on my own.
But even then, like, Pruitt even says, what made you come to the rec center that night? He made the choice to not, he could have gone into Aaron's house as he was supposed to. But
he
because
made the choice to confront him because he lied to him. Right.
And it's that weird, again, like, one of those things, why'd that happen? Well, at the end, it'd be like, well, he just stood in front of God at the end as he died and be like, I see what you did. I mean, that could be an avenue of how that would play out. But at the same time, I found it ironic that Pruitt asks him about that, because if he would have gone again, if he would have gone into Aaron Green's house,
who knows what could have happened?
Right. That presents an entirely new timeline into the multiverse. So, I mean,
this show is a one universe of madness.
It's one island of madness. I mean, it's crazy. Like even that whole like mass thing, like just always felt creepy to me.
Like, which one?
Just mass in general.
And just like the concept
church.
of going to church.
Like, no, like, I'm not going to church. Just the way I've never been like a hymns person.
Okay.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just that aspect where I'm like, nope, I'll give me a band instead, let me like, and, and it's a different type of, praise and worship, I guess. But, yes. I think one of the interesting points again with this show, what Flanagan has brilliantly written into this is that there's possibly an ambiguous cliffhanger moment where
we don't know,
the demon vampire angel thing, did it escape? I mean, I like the fact that he left it open.
I do too. He does that in all of his shows. There's like one little thread that could always come back, which is fascinating.
Because I thought we were getting like a clip where like it's just like this flying and then it just like disintegrates, but
right.
Or maybe it takes longer to disintegrate. I don't know, but I mean, I think it's also interesting how Paul or John or Pruitt he goes to the wall in Jerusalem, but gets lost in the desert, and then like stumbles upon this like hole in the ground that has this lurking creature, and fucking brings it back. Like, bro, that is a terrible idea.
I know, right?
like, why would you do that? Like,
I guess maybe at that point he's not even a crazy old man at that point though, because he's back to being young again. So it's like, I don't know. It seems kind of strange when you use your best judgment, and your best judgment is to put a demon in a trunk and smuggle him back to the United States.
To British Columbia, Vancouver.
I know, right? What a great thematic moment though, where Erin is the one that clips the demon's wings after in that monologue she tells the story about how her mother says that everyone gets their wings clipped at some point, and with her it was when Erin was born. I thought that was great. Really strong stuff.
Very much
it hit hard and in all the right ways. It was really, kind of Shakespearean tragedy-esque.
Absolutely.
Like, whether you liked or didn't like some of the characters, most of them were dead by the end of it. The sheriff dies on the beach, and then thankfully he got to die before seeing his kid burn up.
Yeah.
And he got to die a normal death. So I think, as far as I can tell, there were only two characters in the show that got to die a normal death, and Sheriff was one and Sarah was the other. Because she rejects the blood when Monsignor tries to put it in her.
Yes.
Everyone else gets burnt to a crisp, ashes off the sunlight stuff, which is crazy.
How did Joe die again?
He hit the back of his head.
That's right. So
then Monsignor drank all the blood out of him.
So I guess he didn't. I say it's not a normal death by any means, but at least he didn't get vaporized.
Sure, but the common thread here is that all of those people were not churchgoers.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool how intelligently written all of that was.
And then the two kids.
Well, right, but they're alive. So the real question is, do they make it anywhere? Because right now there's no power on the island. There's no cell phone service on the island. Everybody else is dead. They don't have a way to get off the island because all the boats have been burned. They're on a fucking canoe, and she can't feel her legs anymore.
Yep. Yep.
That's a real head scratcher. So,
yeah, and I think they said at one point there was like 30 miles between
them and the mainland.
Yeah, so that's a long time to row a boat.
Especially if one of
For
them
a,
can't do it anymore because she fell back into paralysis.
yeah, so she's just literally using her arms
Just her arms, yeah.
to maybe steer, if that. So, yeah, I don't know what I would do in that point. I don't know if I would go back, and maybe someone would see, holy shit, there's a lot of smoke coming from that island. What's going on there?
Yeah.
And then someone says someone to rescue, and then I feel for the two kids that would have to say what just happened. Like there's only like one, maybe two actual bodies that are left remaining here. Everything else is burnt to a crisp.
Right.
Who do we arrest?
No one. There's nobody to arrest.
Did you happen to see a giant bird flying by chance?
Kind of jankily flying. Like didn't do it
also,
very well.
R.I.P. to all the cats that got murdered.
Man, if you're a dog and cat person, this show, those first couple episodes might not be for you.
Yeah, I was like, to all the people I know that have cats, I was like, I thought of you, and I was like, Corey probably hates this shit that's happened right now.
Nah, man, I separate it. It's like it ain't real. It's
I know
a
it's not real,
television
but
show. It's a work of fiction, so it doesn't.
But then when Bev killed the dog, I was like, I knew it. I knew that.
Yeah,
I knew it.
What a fucking coward! Like she doesn't drink the poison, and she runs to the back, and she gets shot, and that's what turns her into a zombie vampire
thing. Yeah.
And then all the way at the end, when the sun is rising, motherfucker starts to like try digging into the sand to get away from.
I'm like, what do you don't think the sun's gonna go over the hole that you're in? Like, you idiot.
God. Huge shout out to Samantha Sloyan, who is the actor that portrayed that. I had not seen her in anything before this, and it is a really, really tough job to be the person that everybody hates. And she pulled it off. She was incredible. According to Flanagan, in real life, she's like the nicest, sweetest person walking the face of this planet.
I bet.
Which it's really cool just to see people like dig into a character like that. So
I bet.
But great performances all around.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rahul Kohli was great. Kate Siegel was great. Hamish Linklater, who was the pastor, John Pruitt or whatever.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like, acting stellar. His ass off in every scene that he's in.
Yeah, he was superb.
Like literally top to bottom. I didn't think there was a bad performance in the group, which is rare. You don't usually find productions like that. And I mean, we've been talking for almost an hour already about this, and I feel like we barely even scratched the surface, which is the hallmark of something that's really good.
Yeah, and it's like we were saying, like, if we would have had a singular release per episode, where we spend 20-25 minutes on each episode, I mean, that's a good while. That's 2 to 3 hours worth of talking about a show, right? And I think a show like this deserves it just because there's so much to it. And so again, big shout out to Flanagan and everyone involved, on all fronts.
I've rewatched all of his stuff a handful of times, even the shows. I've watched Hill House and Bly Manor, I think 2 times a piece.
Nice,
because there's just so much extra stuff to pick up on.
Yeah,
the way that he lays stuff out, the way they shoot things. When you have the mystery solved and then you go back and watch it again, it's almost as satisfying as watching it the first time, because you start to notice little things and little tells that you might not have picked up on before.
Right.
It's really good. I encourage anyone who hasn't seen it. It's only 7 episodes and it's a complete story. You don't have to binge 6 seasons worth of stuff to get through it. It's phenomenal. The writing is great. The acting is great. The cinematography is wonderful. Like you said, the super thin score with just like the plucky string instruments is absurdly creepy and does its job really well.
Very well done. Yeah.
I cannot recommend it enough. If I had to score it out of 10 as a series, I would give it a 9.6. It's not perfect. There are some parts where the talky nature of it makes some of the episodes feel a little bit long, but I think the payoff in the end is worth it. It's my favorite show I've watched so far this year. I know we talked about that. I know you might not agree with me on that, but it has made me think, and it has brought forth excellent conversation afterwards.
True.
So for me, it's the best thing I've seen, and I'm very excited to like go back and just watch it slowly again and just kind of soak everything in instead of having to binge it in the course of one weekend. So if you had to score it, what would you give it?
Yeah, I was definitely leaning on a 9. I mean, but I think, you know, it's definitely between like I'd probably get a little bit more granular than that and give like a 9.3, something around there. Just kind of the same thing where I feel like if there's anything that was not bad, but maybe like I think the first 2 episodes, like you were saying, had were a little too talky, and I was kind of like, where is this really going? You know, there's only 7 episodes. You know, kind of getting, you know, picking up on things here and there, and obviously not really divulging too much into the story yet to really tell you what's going on. But because they're full on, you know, hour-long episodes, so the first 2 episodes felt longer than the other 5. And again, that's just a feeling, you know, and not a bad thing, because I know that there's a lot that needed to be fleshed out with every character involved, and I know it's tough to do when you've got multiple, you know, characters that only have 3 to 7 episodes to appear in, you know, so it's
a lot
tough.
of heavy lifting in a short period of time. But I do think, to your point at the beginning, that just doing however many episodes it needs for the story to be complete is terrific. I love that we're embracing that, where stuff doesn't need to be 13 episodes just to fill time. If the story dictates 7, then 7 it is, and that's the way it goes. So lot to talk about. It kind of feels like we just went off the cuff on this one, because there's so much to cover, and it goes so deep with everything. Crazy. But we would love to hear what you guys think. We have a wide open comment section below this video of our talking heads. Go ahead and share your thoughts with us. You know, depending on what your background is, where did this show hit you thematically with the religious stuff? What do you think of the story? What do you think of the performances, cinematography, VFX, music? Let us know. We'll respond to anything that shows up there in that comment section. If you want to support the channel, you can do so for free. All you have to do is like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on your notifications, share with your friends, share with your alive pets, your dogs and cats that are walking around the house. Flanagan, don't let Flanagan near your pets. It's a bad idea. We posted video about Foundation earlier. Check that out. Ted Lasso video is already out for this week. What If is coming up tomorrow. Gonna have a Spider-Man 2 4K review, or Doom Patrol, or Ted Lasso next week. There are 3 movies coming out this weekend. There's The Guilty, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, and I'm blanking on the third one.
Sons of Newark.
Many Sons of Newark, or Saints of Newark, the Sopranos movie.
Yes.
Holy hell, there's a lot. We can't wait to watch all of it. It's gonna be another really busy weekend. We're going to have reviews for all those things coming up. So please stay tuned for all of that and so much more. Until next time, see you guys in the next video.
Peace.